Welcome to another episode of We Should Have Recorded That, where we talk about and rehash the conversations that center around our journey as we try to build successful online businesses through community building. Today, we are following my intuition to talk about self-doubt because that feels like something that's really weighing on my mind, my heart, and my efforts or lack thereof. So we're going to unpack that a little bit. We are all prone to self-doubt. Sissy, do you want to kick it off? Do you have any self-doubt or is it just me today?
Oh, I definitely do. But I love that you said you were listening to your intuition to talk about self-doubt because it almost sounded like yin and yang, right? Like to
Mhm.
me, it seems like self-doubt is like the opposite side of the coin of like listening to your intuition, right?
Right.
So I think it stood out to me that that was like the word choice that you used. And
Mhm.
I have found that while I've been plagued with self-doubt throughout my life at various, points, particularly if I feel like I'm in a space and I am experiencing imposter syndrome, where it's like, am I ready to do this? Do I know what I'm doing? Do people care what I have to say?
Mhm.
Um, when I get into that headspace, I think that's where the self-doubt rises the most.
Mhm.
But as I've leaned more into my intuition, what I'm finding is that self-doubt voice is much more quiet and not able to break through as often
Mhm.
because it just the things I'm doing are bigger than me. The things I'm
Mhm.
doing feel like they're coming from a grander plan and direction, and I'm just trying to go with the flow. So who am I to, doubt the plan? I didn't make the plan. I'm because I'm no longer following my own plan. I'm following the plan, or at
Mhm.
least that's how it feels. And
Right.
so there's almost not as much room for self-doubt because there's no self to question.
Mm. I love that big picture view that you have, that you're seeing all of your actions and everything that you're working on as part of a bigger plan and whatever you want to call it, the universe or God or spirit, just like something is leading you in this direction. It's like this is not about me, this is about being able to provide something bigger for others as we all move humanity forward, right? And it's a challenge to for me at least to remain focused on that bigger picture because I so agree with what you just said. Yeah, this is not really about me building this community. It is about helping people, reaching people where they are, helping them find the self-love and self-acceptance as they move to a higher plane of wellness and feeling good and empowered in their bodies so that they can then go out and live at their full potential. Because if you don't feel good in your body, if you have poor health, and that is your limiting factor, you're kept from living at your highest potential and stepping into your power and making an impact in the world. So ultimately, that's why I want to support people who want to eat a meat-based diet as they progress their health. It's not because I think we should all just have a bunch of meat eaters running around just because. It's because I think it allows you to tap into your greater potential, your power, so that we can all impact, all of civilization, mankind, humanity, the universe in a bigger way, in the way that we're meant to. So yeah, when I take that view, I'm like, yes, I'm on the right path. This is what I need to be doing. Big picture stuff, I'm there, I'm with you. And I don't doubt that this is the plan. But when it comes to those day-to-day things,
Mhm.
those baby steps, ooh, that is when that self-doubt takes over and it causes me to hesitate or stall or to even work against myself or just to start questioning. Sometimes just the questioning alone is enough to stop any sort of action. And it's a challenge to not remain in that holding pattern because I do so agree with what you're saying about this is already part of a bigger plan. This is bigger than me. This is bigger than just my own efforts. I know this is the right thing. I have no doubt that me building this community is the right thing. I have no doubt that it will make an impact on the world. Ooh, but how do I get from here, like today, to what I think will be that one day success point where it is making that impact and it does have that wider reach? it just feels stifling sometimes, and it's that self-doubt that, and I don't want to necessarily call it negative self-talk because I've lived in negative self-talk and this isn't quite that. It's just a level of questioning and doubt. Do I know the right things to do? Do I have the right
No,
skills to move
you
forward?
don't.
Do I have the talent? Like, no.
No, probably not, but we'll learn it. I think that's what it comes down to, and, I mean, honestly, that's where I get derailed probably the most is when I run into an issue where there's, like, a steeper learning curve than I'm expecting, whether it's because I'm trying to, like, learn a new platform, like, had to learn the Mighty Networks, hosting platform. Right now, I'm researching, like, podcasting hosting platforms and stuff, and video editing. I don't have a background in that. I'm just figuring it out as I go. And there
Mhm,
are times I get frustrated if I'm not don't feel like I'm getting it, or it's taking a lot longer than I thought.
mhm,
And so I do feel like the day-to-day self-doubt creep in there, but it's not that I doubt that I'll ever learn it. I just know that there's some steep learning curves in the beginning. And one day I know this will all come like second nature as we do it more and more. But yeah, it's tricky in the beginning, and
mhm.
yeah.
It can feel overwhelming. And we talk about sometimes too how there are people who have reached a level of success where they look back and they share their story. And it's really valuable, but it also is removed, right? So it feels harder to relate to because they're already at the pinnacle of success. They've already reached, the upper echelons of what I hope to maybe one day sort of achieve. But I do still hear those same people looking back talking about how when you're in the beginning, it's like drinking from a fire hose. You're trying to learn everything all at once. You have to learn sales, you have to learn marketing, you have to learn team management, you have to learn business growth, building outreach. I don't know even all the things that I'm supposed to learn yet. And that can feel daunting. And so, yeah, it's like you're saying, you've got these times where maybe it's a steeper learning curve than you expected, or you just don't know what you don't know. So it just feels like you're swimming in this vast ocean and you can't get your bearings. And I'm just still at that point. I mean, I've launched the community, I've got some small successes, some small wins under my belt to give me some confidence. The meetings that I'm having and the interactions I'm having are definitely reinforcing that this is a helpful thing, that I'm actually reaching people where they are and helping them in their own journeys. But that number is very small and I want to grow that. So I think for me looking ahead, I know that this marketing and content creation, this marketing sales piece is next. And I feel really unsure about all of that because I see how other people do that aspect, and I see some good examples, but I also it doesn't necessarily feel like the way I want to do it, but
Mhm.
I don't have the answer of how I want to do it. We've talked before about how I don't really like being in front of the camera and putting myself out there and talking about myself. That feels weird, but I know that's what has to happen. I've got to talk about my carnivore journey, my health, like my past, how I've gotten here and what works and what doesn't. But that puts me in a really vulnerable position. And again, like I'm still hanging on to this fear of rejection. So it's like this multifaceted thing where it's like I doubt myself in my ability, one, to show up authentically. And then two, if I do manage to show up authentically, yikes, how is that going to be received? So again, it just kind of is this feedback loop of holding myself back. And I am right on the verge of stepping out of this and over this. And I'm hoping this conversation will be a catalyst for that because I know that the next thing is to get it back out there, back out there on YouTube, on Instagram, make the videos, make the content, show up as my real self, let people see that and decide for themselves if they want more or less of what I have to offer. But I know that's coming and I'm kind of teetering on the edge. I'm not sure if I'm ready to jump yet, but I need to.
Yeah, that's been a struggle too, as Stephanie and I launched our community, and then just trying to figure out how the best way to get the word out to the people who I know need this space and want this space. Was so much of the sort of canned advice has to do with already having a following or already having an email list, or you at least have one before the other, and you create freebies to then attract people to join your email list, and then you market to your email list. And it's like,
Mm,
how do I do that if I don't have a following? How do I get a following if I don't have an email list? And
mhm,
it's a little bit of trying to hack the system, it feels like. And
Mhm.
so one of our recent decisions has been to do a lot more reels on Instagram. Originally, we were doing more just posts because they were quicker, a little bit easier, didn't require us to be in front of a camera, that sort of thing. But they
Mhm.
just don't get the same kind of views as the reels do. So we're trying to do more reels.
Mhm.
Um, Also, as she and I create like podcast content, then chopping that up and putting the little clips out there because we want to make the most out of the content that we're creating. So putting, little snippets of it to, entice people to potentially the full episode and that sort of thing. And
Mhm.
then we recently decided to try using TikTok as a social media platform, which I've never used.
Mhm. Nor have I.
But there's a pretty big like book talk uh subset on TikTok. And
Mhm.
so, and because of the way the algorithm works, where it's always showing people your stuff who don't necessarily like interact with you normally, it
Mhm.
felt like a platform where we can maybe reach new people that weren't otherwise able to engage with our things
Mhm.
through like Instagram or YouTube or whatever. It's definitely a balance of trying to figure out. I don't want to run all the social medias, and it's not at all the plan. It's just where are we going to get the most mm, engagement? I think
Mhm.
Facebook is practically like dead, like I don't think it's going to come from that.
Mhm.
Instagram is very visual, TikTok is very visual, and doing video podcasting definitely like allows you to then take advantage of those more video forward platforms like Instagram and TikTok and YouTube.
Mhm.
So that's just the direction we're choosing to go for now, and we'll see. I'm not totally sure how it'll work out, but that's at least the background for why Stephanie and I have made those decisions and trying to put video engagements towards the front, because that is honestly the bulk of our community, at
Mhm.
least in the membership, paid membership area. It's Zoom meetings, it's interviews, it's podcast episodes talking about writing craft and
Mhm.
maintaining tension in your writing and how to deliver a believable happy ending. I mean, all of
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. So
Mhm.
those have been the platforms that we've chosen to focus on,
Mhm.
taking into consideration who we believe our audience to be and where we think they'll be located.
Yeah, and that makes sense. It really does. Yeah, you talk about TikTok, and you called me the other day, and you mentioned, like, "See, I really think we're gonna need to go on TikTok," and I was immediately heels dug in the sand. No, I don't like I'm not comfortable with that. We've talked before. Social media, not my jam. The obstacle's the way. I'm only here because I have to be kind of thing. And I mean, sometimes our own resistance is a sign that we might need to do something. I'm not gonna lie, I'm like some other people. I have sincere concerns about security surrounding TikTok. Some people have raised some red flags about using those platforms. However, at this point, they're also ubiquitous. Everyone, not everyone, I don't, but most people are using TikTok regularly. So, like, that's where the people are. Am I gonna be willing to go where the people are and do and meet them where they are and bring them in? I don't know. I'm
I
still on
just
the
heard
fence.
Little Mermaid in my head. I want to be where the
Where the
people
people are. Oh
are.
my God. Yeah. Right. And we need to get to where the people are. Oh,
Want
but
to
what
see them
about
dancing?
but what about the discomfort that you feel in that space? Like
Yeah.
I don't even like getting on Instagram to see if I've had any engagement. Like, oh, I cringe all the time at this stuff.
No, but there's different ways you can engage, and I think that's why TikTok is at least a little bit appealing, because I
Mhm.
don't get the sense that it's going to require me to like other people's things or follow other
Mhm.
people or comment on things in order to get that engagement.
Mhm.
All from what I understand from even people who have gone viral on TikTok, they
Mhm.
just essentially post their content there, and that is the extent of the
Mhm.
engagement that they need to have within that space, is
Right.
just continuing to post engaging content. And so I guess I'm kind of viewing it, and maybe this is totally naive and just, beginner's mindset. You don't know what you don't know. But
Yeah.
what I'm viewing it as is I create the account. That's where I throw some of our clips on there, throw a clip on there, and I'm off. I'm not like necessarily like looking at other things. I'm not having to follow other people or spend any real amount of time on there. I'm just uploading my clip and then see ya. And
And then, so
occasionally
I
putting the
wonder,
kind of clips that, follow us here, subscribe here. We've got this new interview here on our platform. Come join the community. And almost treating it like an email list, except you just don't have permanent access to them.
right, that makes sense. So then let me ask you, and maybe you know, maybe you don't, how do you get people to come from TikTok to your space? Like, do you have a profile that people click if they're interested? How do you plug yourself in that space?
It looks like you can add like links to videos and
Okay.
such. So my thought, again, I haven't done this yet. I literally just set up the profile today.
Mhm.
It looks like we can put links to our space. We could even put links to maybe our link tree that houses all of our links. Are you familiar with Linktree?
Yeah.
Okay, so we could potentially maybe put the link to our link tree, which then they could find everything, our
Right.
YouTube channel, our community, our email list and freebies and all of that.
Mhm.
So I think it's part of the content that you put in there in
Mhm.
order to get them to engage with
Okay.
you on, basically you have to bring them to a different platform. Like,
Mhm.
I don't think anyone's conducting business on TikTok.
I gotcha.
Right?
Okay. That aligns with what I've
Like the
heard.
clips
And
that I see from TikTok that are then like shared onto Facebook or whatever,
mhm.
it's a lot of people putting like, if you want this, visit my website. If you want this, follow me on XYZ.
Mhm.
So it's
Okay.
more of a conversion. There's definitely like a conversion aspect you have to do. It's
Mhm.
not enough just to like exist on TikTok from what I understand. But
Mhm.
no, I don't know. Maybe, I mean, are they doing sponsorships? Are the famous people doing sponsorships? I don't see anybody famous, so I don't know.
Funny. Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know either. It's uncharted territory for me. And yeah,
I'm
I'm
like
not
2 hours into this venture. Like this, I don't know.
mhm. And honestly, I have a feeling for myself, I'm probably just gonna let you dip your toes in there first, and then I'm gonna sit back and see how that goes for you before
Yeah, for
I
sure.
I get in there, you know?
Yeah,
Again,
yeah,
just
for
not sure,
sure.
doubting myself, doubting that that's the right way to go.
One that I feel like would be good for you to use, I don't know how much you're using it, is Reddit and responding to people's questions
Wow. Mhm.
and then tagging your content in the question, like say you made a blog post that related to it, or say you have something featured, like if this podcast were about those questions, and you could like tag a particular podcast episode or something to Reddit, because I feel like your community is probably out there just asking questions. And if you could position yourself as like the voice of like guidance and
Mhm.
expertise, or some version of experience,
Yeah.
then that I think would potentially convert people to your community at a decent rate with
That's a good thought. I'll
not a
have to
lot
look
of
in.
exposure or effort on
Mhm.
your part as far as like a social media thing.
Yeah. I'll have to look into what the community guidelines are. I know different, Reddit threads have different mods and stuff. I did actually respond to something on a carnivore thread the other day. It was taken down because I don't have enough karma points, which I don't even know what karma points are. I guess it's, likes from other people, upvotes. And you can't get upvotes if your comments get taken down. So I don't know really how I'm supposed to get these karma points. Anyways, my response to someone was immediately taken down. So there is some kind of, I don't know if you're banned from self-promoting, or which I wasn't doing, but just there, it is kind of different for different threads, like how the moderators set it up. So that's a good idea. I'll have to look into that to see if that's actually an avenue I can explore. Because yeah, I'm always happy to answer questions. Like that's what I hope to do in my community. I want those conversations to be happening in the chat thread on my main, feed page, community feed page within the context of the Mighty Networks community. But yeah, I got to get people to come over first so that they even know that that's a space where they can ask those questions. So that's
Mhm.
why it just kind of circles back to, okay, now I've got the community and I've had this little like ease in time of adjusting to hosting these weekly meetings. It is now time to put in the work on the content creation and the marketing. And so I've started, going back down the YouTube rabbit holes of looking into how to do that effectively, and learning from others who've done it well. And it's good and it's motivating and it's good information, but it also feels a little overwhelming because again, I don't have a background in marketing. I am not super tech savvy or social media savvy. So I'm really just kind of having to figure it out as I go. And that's okay. That's part of the process. But it's a scary part, which is why we're here talking about it, because I'm sure I'm not the only one who really wants to do something online and create a business that's sustainable and that works really well for my lifestyle and actually reaches people and makes an impact, but who doesn't love being on social media and doesn't know how to do all of that stuff right away. I can't be the only one. So I'm
Well,
hoping
that and it
this will help.
changes drastically. I mean, I had my business from like actively from 2014 to 2016. And the algorithms have changed so much since then that it's not even the same like processes or philosophies, and the technology has changed, and AI has made some things easier, but then I mean, everything's just so different that most of what I knew and did at that point would not work today.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, like you mentioned the other day, blogs used to be the way to build your email list and stuff. But now, guess what? And even people were always talking about SEO, like search engine optimization to get them to your page. Well, now with AI, Google and these other search places, from what I understand, they're just distilling down the information that they find on the internet and they're going ahead and giving the person the information, the answer to their general question right on the search page. They're not having to go click and find a blog that relates to it. So Google just used your blog, your information to feed this person that answer without taking them to your page. They never even had a chance to see your little pop-up join our email list, like, here's a freebie offer for you kind of thing to rope people in. So you're so right. Those methods that worked then aren't necessarily working now. There's this big shift that's taking place always because technology is just advancing that quickly. It's intimidating.
And I think that's part of my motivation for just choosing a few things and trying to get a decent handle on them.
Yeah.
Um, and if I find one that works better than another, by all means, I'll just dig in, right? Like
Mhm.
if TikTok ends up being the thing, then forget Instagram. I'll occasionally post something there or also share too, or,
Mhm.
whatever. Like if
Mhm.
that ends up being the thing, then that's where I'll focus. Or if for whatever reason I get traction on the YouTube channel, whatever it is, like wherever I feel like I'm getting the most traction, that's ultimately where I'll prioritize the time.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's changing constantly and it's hard to stay up on the
Mhm.
latest updates. And I've heard other like businesses that use the various platforms, talk through some of those growth struggles as, YouTube changes something and all of a sudden now you have to have people join, like they now have memberships on for like the channels and subscribing to like subscribing with membership to channels, and
Mhm.
there's all
Mhm.
these different things that are just changing all the time, and it is tricky to stay on top of it.
Mhm.
But in a sense, bringing it back to like the self-doubt, that almost makes me feel like, well, then everyone's in that boat, because even those who have like been in those spaces for like say the last 5 years, they're still having to learn the new changes. So like when a new change comes about, we're basically all in the same space again, trying to figure out, okay, well now how do I get my content in front of the eyes that I need it to be in front of?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. It throws everybody for a loop, but you're right. It does kind of in some ways level the playing field. It takes everyone back to square one. Because I've heard that too from folks where they're like, oh, I had things dialed in and this was working, and all of a sudden, just an algorithm changes on a platform and totally, drops off. as far as bringing them
Suddenly, YouTube showed preference for videos that I think are over 15 minutes long.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, like, then everyone had to create longer content, or it shows preference for engagement for the entire video. I think it's called like click-through rate or something. and
Mhm.
and so then you had to like do things to keep someone like hooked until the end, or you know whatever else. It's tricky to figure out. I don't know if you were still on Facebook, but I remember when Facebook went through that iteration where all of a sudden you would stop seeing your friends' posts, even though they posted, if you didn't engage with their last few posts. So if you didn't actually like it or comment, you stopped being able to see your friends' posts. Like, it stopped appearing in your feed. And what you kept seeing over and over again was all these Facebook ads. Remember when like it switched to like ad stuff, and it's like, that became almost everything that you saw, and then like just a handful of things. So it would only be once your friend's like baby announcement or wedding announcement got like 12 to whatever likes, that suddenly it would appear on your feed, but it
That's
wouldn't
wild.
be there from the jump, even though they were your Facebook friend. It's like, even though that was a page that you
Strange.
wanted to see, if you're not constantly engaging with it,
Mhm.
and if that person's not encouraging you to give a thumbs up if you blah blah blah, give it,
Right. Mhm. Yeah. No, I was definitely off of there by that time. That sounds ridiculous, but I mean, that's how it goes. I definitely remember hearing people talking about that. I never even see, my own stuff anymore. So yeah, there's a lot of wading through the muck and just trying to figure out what's next and how to get there. Um, yeah, I think I'm ready. I think I'm ready to take the next steps to lean into the content stuff. And I think for me it is going to be through YouTube, because I know a lot of carnivores hang out on there looking to hear other people's stories and looking to get information to questions that Google does not answer. Like, you Google what's a healthy diet, they are not telling you eat meat and animal-based products and get a ton of healthy animal saturated fats. That's not what that's not where people are able to find their answers. So a lot of people go to YouTube. I know when I was early on, that's where I was spending my time. That's where I was looking for answers, and eventually stumbled into finding the host of the community that I was previously a part of, listened, watched all her videos, found great value in it, and finally, converted and went to her paid community. So I know from firsthand experience that that's where my people are hanging out. And that's what they're
Right.
doing.
And if you think back to like how many times you had to engage with that before you actually like even looked into the community,
I
you
must have
know,
seen at least 20 plus videos before I even considered it. And then I saw another 10. And it wasn't until she had, a guest speaker on to talk about the importance of community in supporting, this lifestyle change, that I was like, all right, I'm in. I'm gonna do this.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
This
I think about that all the time with like the stuff that I purchase or subscribe to, where it's like, gosh, I've consumed so much of their free content before I,
mhm.
ever, bought their book, or, subscribe to their group, or,
Mhm.
whatever the next step is, whatever the like money exchange step is.
Right. Yeah. When someone I was listening to the other day, one of these people who's already made it to the top and they're successful, they were talking about how that conversion rate it's in the length of time it takes to convert someone has increased, and that people do, just like you're saying, they engage with your free stuff, they check you out, they follow you here, here, and here too, and then they're gonna circle back and see some more stuff, and then they're going to wait, and then maybe they'll come around to making that decision to purchase whatever it is, engage with you and in your sales funnel, whatever. But that it takes longer than it used to be. You could just show somebody something a couple times and they're clicking, they're coming over. But that's not the case. So I think that's a really important thing that we have to remember as we start this next step, is we are playing the long game here. I would love to have a ton of members join January. I'd be lucky if I got, a handful of paid members. And Instead, I just need to think about, I've got the place for people to come when they're ready, but they're not ready because I haven't put out the content. I haven't showed enough value. I haven't given them enough of a picture of who I am and what I bring to the table for them to want to come over. And until I've reached that point, I shouldn't be surprised to have low engagement on the actual community platform itself. So in some ways, it's kind of this big shifting gears. For the last several months, I've been putting a lot of effort into the community, making that a good space. And I've got it to a good spot right now. I've got 3 weekly meetings, I've got journal prompts. I post an article related to something or other every other week or so. And I'm definitely tending to the members whenever there's any kind of chat engagement or comments, or if they're directly messaging me. That's a good place to get that to for right now, but I can't do much more on my own without the community, because as we've talked about before, the community is the product. The community is what people are coming to that space for, not just me, but I've got to be the one to pull them in. So I'm going from this community building mindset shift where I'm kind of safe, protected in my own little bubble. I can create, things just like I want and curate the space and whatnot, to, all right, I got to step out of my comfort zone. I've got to make this marketing content. I've got to produce enough of it, throw enough things at the wall, hoping something will stick, that I can start to work on, effective strategies for me, for what works for me, my audience, the people that I want to bring in. And that's going to take time, but it's also going to take a huge amount of consistency and continuing to show up and not letting that self-doubt derail my efforts. I am going to have to remain headstrong in that.
One of the things that you kind of alluded to, but I want to dig into more, is that aspect of people getting to see who you are, that authenticity piece. And as you were saying that, I was thinking to the people who I have engaged with in a deeper level, and it's always, for me, it is always based on not just that their content is valuable to me, but that I resonate with them as an individual. And like, you would think that this stuff wouldn't necessarily matter, like for the actual product that I'm purchasing. Like, why does it matter if I like this person or not, if they're putting out great content that I benefit from? I promise you, like, I do not give money to people that I don't like, So if
Very
there's something
true.
like that's like off-putting about any aspect of their personality, even if it doesn't negate the like value of the content they're putting out,
Mm-hmm.
I don't engage. I find myself pulling back. It's,
Yeah.
so I think a big part of that is in just figuring out how you show up in those spaces in an
Mm-hmm.
authentic way so that those people feel a connection to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's a big challenge. As much as I feel like I am able to be an open book, sometimes I don't know what page to open to. I don't know what chapter to share. I'm like, okay, I can share, but like, what matters to people? Because the other thing you hear a lot of is you need to give people the answer to their questions. Like, you need to help them. How is your content benefiting others? And that's kind of where I feel like I run into that roadblock. It's like, okay, I want to be authentic and share my story, but is that enough? And if I'm supposed to then distill it down, or give people something that applies to them, how do I make that transition authentically? Because that feels forced. Because how am I supposed to tell somebody else what to do when am just figuring it out for myself as well?
You don't tell them what to do at all. It's the same challenge of writing memoir. Now there
Mm.
is like that filter where you have to, I didn't just put every story in my memoir. Well, I did, and then I took them out,
And then you
you
took
know,
them out.
because it's like, well, this story feels significant to me in my life, but this, the death of this childhood pet, like, is not really adding to the overall story,
Right.
so it's like that can just go. But it's figuring out those aspects of your experience that are more universal or that speak to something bigger. And then
Mhm.
it's not distilling it down to the point where it's just a soundbite of advice, because people don't want to be told what to do. I
Mm-mm.
promise you, people don't want to be told what to do. I don't want to be told what to do. You don't want to be told what to do.
Mm-mm.
It's you'll get so much more like positive interaction instead if they can pick out from what you're doing how that applies to their life.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, the thing I keep, like the messaging I keep hearing, especially in, writing memoir and stuff, is your reader likes to feel smart. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
whether you're writing memoir or whether you're writing a murder mystery or whatever, like, your reader doesn't want you to necessarily like tell them. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
want to make sure you do it in a way that they get it, but they want to feel like they figured something out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it feels more personal to them when they get the opportunity to like figure out a piece. So I almost say it's my understanding that you should stop a little bit shy of like giving the advice of like, this is how you do X.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's tons of stuff out there that's super like clickbaity and whatever, 3 steps to whatever. I don't engage with it. I engage with the personal stories. I want to hear the personal stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to be told the 3 ways to do XYZ. I want to figure those out based off of what worked for you and you and you, and then I can distill down like what the commonalities are
Mm-hmm.
and what of those apply to me in my life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, people they don't want my advice. They don't. They want my story. I think that's
Listeners,
my
tell
point.
us, do you want our advice or do you want our stories? I mean, I think, I don't know. I'd like to think we do a decent job of I give you advice for
Mm-hmm.
your experience. And if that
Mm-hmm.
applies to the people listening, then great. Then I'm
Right.
maybe sort of pseudo giving them advice, but
Mm-hmm.
it's direct because the advice might not be the same for them.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And I gotta say, I am envious of your partnership with your partner, Stephanie, in your community because when y'all show up to YouTube and you're making content, you're doing a little podcast, guess what? You have each other to talk with. Just like this is so much easier for me than sitting in front of a screen and trying to remember what I want to say and saying it and not feeling awkward and weird because it is awkward and weird. Who talks to themselves in front of a mirror? Oh, wait, I did growing up a ton, way too much. But that's not what people on YouTube really, it's an awkward level of conversation talking to someone who is not even there, right? But that's kind of
Mhm.
how it goes unless you start bringing on guests and whatnot. And I guess for whatever reason, I don't feel like I'm at that point. Now, maybe I need to reevaluate there, but
You're
that,
forgetting, you're forgetting that you record your Zoom meetings. And
mhm,
that you in those meetings are talking directly to another person
mhm,
and probably not putting on any sort of like filter of, oh, how is this going to look or how's this going to translate, like
mhm,
you're in the moment. So I think you're probably showing up as your most authentic self, and I
mhm,
think that's where you farm your clips from, sissy. I don't think
mm.
you make new content. I think you just repackage the content you're already making.
No, that's an interesting idea. I will say that's a very good idea. I have been my first instinct is, well, what is said in those meetings, I don't feel like is for public fodder. But what I say when it's not in reference to any one person or there's, specific identifying situations, that's maybe where I would feel comfortable pulling from there, you
I
know?
think you could find clips
Hmm.
of you, even if you're giving like direct advice. I
Hmm.
think there are probably times where you maybe don't say the person's name, or you can even change how
Right.
you run your meetings so that you know that you are capturing those sound bites in a way that you can repackage them later. But
Hmm.
I think that if you looked, there are probably clips where you're dishing out some wisdom.
Maybe, yeah.
And if it's a, group of 4 or 5 people, no one's going to know which person you're talking to unless you're like really calling them out or giving really specifics of their conversation and stuff. And I think that you could repackage some of those sound bites,
Hmm.
and it's gonna translate as being really authentic because you are authentically just having a conversation with another person in those meetings.
That's brilliant. Sissy, you're brilliant. I don't know if everyone here listening gets that yet, but like you have so much wisdom. You are always right. You're always right. Most often, always right. So, yeah,
So
that's
the copy
really smart.
paste, tell everyone.
Yeah, That's great. And then I'm also sitting here thinking like, well, no, duh, that would be the perfect way to share and get people to come in because they're like, oh, wait, this is from a meeting that was valuable in that meeting. I want to hear the whole thing. I want to hear the story behind why, whatever reason she's sharing that. Well,
Right.
thank
And people love, like, it's almost like dangling the carrot. Like,
you.
don't give away the juice, you know? Like,
Right.
people want to know, like, oh, who is having that issue?
Hmm.
Who's like struggling with carnivore because their husband doesn't want them to do it? Like,
Right. Right.
it's juicy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so funny, but you're right. It absolutely is. So, okay, okay. So that's maybe an area I need to look into. That's good.
And, if nothing else, if you have a certain topic that you want to make content for,
Hmm.
why not just start off the meeting with, this is what I was thinking about today. You give
Hmm.
your little spiel, prior to anyone else. And then, if the conversation turns, whatever, at least you
Hmm.
have a portion of your meeting recording where
Right.
you are just talking to your group of people
Yeah.
about the thing that you want to be able to, throw onto
Mm.
YouTube or Instagram or whatever.
Yeah. That's so brilliant. Sissy, I'm so thankful that we're having this conversation. That's going to make it so much easier for me to step into this next level, I guess, because yeah, in my mind, I've built it up to be so much more than it has to be, right? I've like built it, oh, I've got to have this production value. I've got to, have these sound bites. It's got to, have this kind of razzle dazzle to get people
Right.
in and to get them to stick around, or else the algorithm will shoot me and my future stuff to the bottom. But that's a really smart nugget of wisdom on
Yeah,
my
that's our plan. Stephanie and I planned to that. Right now, we don't have memberships engaging with, our videos or coming to meetings yet, because those are exclusively for paid membership and we don't have paid members yet.
Mhm,
Um, so until that, we're having to just develop content in like a podcast kind of format like this, where we're just having conversation and then
mhm.
clipping those conversations to little sound bites.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
there's no reason why, I mean, and we certainly plan to use some of those conversations that happen within a meeting space or an interview or whatever else we're doing,
Mhm.
whatever we're already making, we're
Yeah,
using that as many times as we can.
yeah. That's wise. That's wise. Yeah, great. Well, I mean, overall, this conversation has helped my self-doubt. I feel like there's a little bit more of an action plan for me for moving forward. And also just kind of letting go of some of those preconceived notions of things that I feel like I have to do, right? Like take what you got, take what you're already doing
Mm.
and use that. Like, what a good message. What an
Yeah.
approachable way to move forward.
And it's a long game. I mean, that's the other piece of it is like, I think that self-doubt starts to creep in when we don't get like the immediate results. Like when you post something and it doesn't get, X amount of likes or any comments or whatever, you feel like, oh, well, that wasn't valuable. But
Mhm.
we're playing the long game here. I mean, it may be a while before we find the right avenues that allow our people to engage with our content.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty good. Well,
All right.
Sissy,
That wraps.
you've
Did we
eliminated my
tackle
self-doubt.
self-doubt?
Do you have any more self-doubt that we need to like go pull out of the closet, dust off, kind of rearrange for you?
Oh, I mean, life. my, my future, my finances, but again, we talked about that a little bit in the last episode as far as like the long-term finances. And again, it's a long game and
Mhm,
that's why I'm making some of the choices I made in setting up the business finances and paying the full year in advance for the subscription to the platform. Because yeah, there's some doubts that creep in. Am
yeah.
I gonna have to build another side hustle while running a business, or can I just focus on business?
Right, right. Yeah. Is this going to be enough? And it
Yeah,
will, but it will take time.
it's gonna take time.
It will take
It's gonna
time.
take time.
Yeah.
And we'll
Well,
look back on this episode, I don't know, 6 months, a year from now, and we'll be like, see, I'm so glad we did that. I'm so glad we just every day just did that one more thing, just chip at it, one every day, a little bit more,
yeah.
a little bit more.
Yeah. Yet again, I love your hopeful optimism. As you said, we're going to look back on this in 6 months. I did not think you were going to go positive. I was like, we're going to look back in 6 months and think, oh my God, they were so clueless. How could they be so naive? But again, thank you for your optimism. It's always a breath of fresh air. That's something I'm personally working on, is trying to, expect better, have high expectations, have hopes. So that's a good reminder. Yeah, that good gut check, because that's totally not where I would have taken that. So thank you.
You know, you can count on me for that eternal sunshine.
Oh yes, always very
Hey,
helpful.
maybe that means I should start up that side hustle of that encouragement only.
Oh my God, should we share that yet now, or should that
Oh
just
my
be a
God,
teaser for the
listener,
future?
this was I don't know, it was a wild, wild idea I had a couple of months back where, just OnlyFans seemed to be just skyrocketing and people could do anything. They could just bake cookies on there and get subscribers and money and income, or there was someone like folding laundry and so I was highlighting the idea that not enough people get encouragement in their lives, because I kept giving random people like encouragement in my everyday life and getting all this positive feedback about how whatever I said was super meaningful to them and had like some major impact in their life. Like one girl started writing every day because I complimented her writing after she shared it at a yoga and writing class I went to. And I was like, people don't hear enough encouragement, and they filter out anything from like their best friend, their sister, their mom. You could say all the nicest things. And if it comes from, people in that close to you, you kind of disregard it as like, oh, they're just saying that because you know, they love me or whatever. And so I was like, you know what? People need more encouragement in this world. Maybe I just make an encouragement only.
Mm-hmm.
Guess the
Sign
idea
up.
is totally dead in the water now that I got this camera set up and ring light.
Oh my gosh, funny.
Fully clothed, not anything,
Yeah,
sexual,
just
but
to be
like
clear, it was for encouragement only.
encouragement
But
only.
encouragement only
Everyone
for
needs a pep
listeners.
talk, but Sissy and I have talked about making a couple episodes every now and again of just us just giving you guys pep talks.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's what this will look like. As I looked into the OnlyFans, again, you had to have a following on some other platform first. There wasn't any sort of, from what I could find, algorithm in OnlyFans that would promote you. You really had to promote yourself on Instagram or TikTok or some other social media to draw people to your OnlyFans subscription base. And so, no thanks.
No thanks.
I'm not there yet. Maybe if this doesn't, work out, I'll get there, but nah.
That's okay. This will pan out. This will bring you a lot more prosperity than OnlyFans, a lot more.
Yeah, I was a little bit nervous about the side effects and dealing with the downsides of
Yeah.
existing on a platform where there's already some assumption about the kind of content you're going to be delivering, and then not meeting those expectations seemed a little risky.
Risque. All right. Well, I think that's a great way to close out the episode with the OnlyFans story.
We should definitely put that in the title as like girls talk about OnlyFans.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that one time I considered going on OnlyFans.
Oh, I love it. I love
Yeah,
it. Too
perfect.
funny.
Get that click through. They're coming to the end, baby.
They're coming. They're going to be totally surprised. We'll have to tell them they have to wait till the end to find out about OnlyFans.
Yeah, stick around for the story. You'll get there. All right. Well, let's wrap this up. Again, thank you for this conversation, for helping relieve some self-doubt, for getting some steps forward. I appreciate it. Maybe other people find it helpful, maybe they don't, but I do. This has been wonderful.
It's been great, Sissy. Talk again
All
soon.
right. We'll
Glad we
chat next
recorded
time.
this one.
All right.
Bye.